If you're a bass player, you might want to click off this video. It's probably just going to offend you. This video is broken down into two sections. If you want to skip ahead, here you go. So I use ArranBans on half my videos and probably all of my demos. So I've probably got some really sophisticated bass VST, right? Well, no. The method I use for ArranBans is actually a bit weird. So I take my bass, I record a long note on each of the open strings. I stick them into a sampler. I make sure each string only plays its own range, and that's kind of it. So yeah, I'm using one-shot samples on ArranBans, but no one's ever mentioned anything about it, and it's a lot faster than recording live bass, so who cares? If you want to download my bass samples for yourself, if you want to try this out, I'll link to them in the description. So obviously I'd never use this method on anything serious because it does sound pretty dreadful on its own, and I think there is a noticeable improvement from using live bass. But on a demo or just a writing session, it does make a huge difference. And you know, if you don't have a bass guitar or you don't want to buy an expensive bass VST, this method might work for you. Very quickly, if you're a guitar player and you're not happy with your guitar tone, check out my impulse responses with the link in the description. Okay, so now we're in a mix. I want to show you the difference between the live and the ArranBans. You can kind of hear the difference in them coming from the same guitar, but just one's one-shot samples and then one's the actual live bass. So I'll show you the track as it was. This is from a YouTube video, so you might have heard it already. So I've got two tracks here. I've got the ArranBans here, and then I've got the live bass here. The track itself has the live bass, but I've just programmed this bass so you can just kind of hear the difference. I'll do it in solo at first, and I'll show you in the mix. In the mix, there's not much difference at all. I think the program one does sound a bit less weighty though, but you'll hear for yourself. So we'll start with the live bass. Okay, pretty good. And then the ArranBans. So you can hear they both have the same tone on them. The program one does sound different, but it's not that much worse than the live bass in my opinion. It's plenty good for writing with. As I say, I've used it in a lot of these videos and no one's been able to tell, so that might speak for something. Okay, so I'll just show you them in a mix now. So I'll show you the live bass, I'll play the live bass first, and then I'll play the ArranBans. Okay, and I'll go straight to the ArranBans. There is a difference, but it's not much. I think, as I say, the live bass just seems to have more low-end presence or more weight to it, and the ArranBans just sounds a bit less characterful, I suppose. These do have the same tone on them, but the live bass, I've just split the tone into 3 different tracks so you can kind of see what's going on a bit easier. So we have a distortion track, a mid track, and a low track, and I'll just show them all now. So the distortion track sounds like this. So I've essentially just filtered a lot of the low end out, pretty much everything up to 450. And then I use this pedal, it's just a overdrive pedal for a guitar. And I use that 50% mix. And then that goes into free guitar amp, Ignite Emissary. Oh, we're on the clean channel and we're just driving the gain up on the clean channel. And then boosting a lot of treble, a lot of mids, cutting out a lot of bass. We want this to be as kind of bright as possible here. And then I've got this EQ at the end just to kind of soften off the high end and cut out even more low end. And then we've got the mid track, which sounds like this. You can hear it's a lot cleaner than the other one. We're essentially just cutting out a lot of low end, even more low end than before. And then we're boosting, where's the boost? 2.5K by 9 dB, so a lot of boost. And that's just given a lot of the sort of clarity in the mid-range and a bit of the high end as well. The strings on this guitar are quite old, so it doesn't sound as clear as it could do, But if I put newer strings on there, it'd have a lot of kind of bright, jangly stuff in the high end that I quite like in bass. And then that goes into a compressor, and we're just making it a lot smoother. So you can see the compressor's just working to keep all those notes basically the same volume. And then the low track. So obviously the goal with the low track is just to keep as consistent of a low end as possible. We're cutting out everything under 250, and then we've got another compressor on here. I'm sure this is set really strong. Yeah. And obviously it's getting hit less with the higher notes like that one, but the goal is to keep the low notes and the high notes roughly the same volume on the low end, just so the whole track has a consistent feel about it. So I realise now that I never actually talked about why we split the bass up into 3 tracks in the first place. So we do it because in a dense mix where the guitar and bass are playing basically the same thing, the bass guitar can actually get kind of lost in the mix as sort of like an extension of the guitar. So in order for us to hear the bass guitar and the guitar as 2 separate entities, we use the higher tracks like the mid track and the distortion track in order to kind of hear the bass cut through the mix sort of higher up. And also it helps us for when we're listening on like phone speakers or whatever, where we can't actually hear that low end, it helps us to hear that distortion of the high end of the bass, which can give the indication of the bass that's there, but you can't actually hear the low end of it, if that makes sense. And then if I out all those it back in and then go back to the bus at the end, so all these low, mid and distortion are going to this live bass bus. Usually I just do this all on one track because you can do that in Ableton, but on this I'm just going to show you like this. And that's going into a bass cab. I don't remember where I got this bass cab from. And then we've got a EQ on here. It looks a bit crazy, but I'll just show what I'm doing. So this is just cutting out a bunch of sub low that you can't really hear, but it's taking up some headroom. And then a high cut here, just taking off, rolling off the high end here, because you can't really hear any of that in the mix anyway. So that's everything above 4.5K. And then 2K, a little boost, because I like, that's where a lot of the kind of nice jangly mid-range comes from, around 2K. This mid-range was kind of fine with the guitars, so I cut that out. And then the lows, I wanted to give it a nice boost, so I've used a dynamic EQ here. So I've boosted that a bit, well quite a bit, 8 dB, and then I'm using the dynamic band on the EQ to bring it back by 5. I think I hit the mic there. And that's, again, trying to make the low notes feel the same as the high notes. And then finally, we've just got a limiter at the end with a short kind of 75 millisecond release time, and then this is taking off a lot of gain. I'll show you what that's doing. So on the low notes it's pinned around -6 gain reduction, and then on the higher notes it kind of varies between 3 and 6. Again, just trying to make it feel consistent. With bass I just want it to be flat, just a complete sausage of audio. I don't want any variance. And if I do want variance, I do that with automation and not with the bass itself, if that makes sense. Obviously on a softer mix, you can get away with more dynamics in your bass, but for this kind of track, I want no dynamics in the bass. But yeah, I think that's all the bass tone. So let me know if that helps. I'll see you next time.